Hi everyone, it's me, Tim, and today I want to talk about level scaling. I've had a lot of questions about level scaling, especially after I did some of the videos on random encounters and how I did it in both Fallout and Arcanum. So I thought I'd talk about level scaling and how my ideas on it changed over time. But let me go ahead and give one of the questions that many people asked. This one is from Angel Vaca 2984, who asks, "What do you think about level scaling? Do you like the game world and enemies to scale up to your character's level so you get more or less constant challenge? Or do you prefer a fixed level system in which some areas get easier over time, but you get a more real sense of progression?" It's a good question, covers all the bases that I want to go over. So, for those of you who just want to TLDW, I tend to prefer fixed, but lately I've been really into a very limited form of level scaling. So let me break that down now. So I used to always make fixed level, no scale systems. Fallout was like that. The idea was if you found an area that was too hard, you should leave, gain some levels, and come back. So everything that we put down in the world was a fixed level. So if you went up to the military base, that was really hard. If you went around the Shady Sands area, that was really easy. If you went up a lot of levels, you'd find the Shady Sands area trivial. And you would start to it'd become tougher and tougher, or easier and easier for you to go up to the northwest, where the really hard stuff was. This also sort of is how random encounters worked. We did have tougher random encounters up in certain areas, especially the northwest, than in others. In general, though, random encounters were all over the place, and the special random encounters that you got that luck factored into, there was no particular level you had to be. However, when Arcanum was being designed, I did introduce level scaling of a sort. I'll describe what I did. You can decide whether it was level scaling. So, Arcanum random encounters, and I explained this, and there's a whole video explaining this, had a power level that the designer set. So that was fixed. However, Arcanum could also give you different random encounters based on whether it was day or night. So some designers made some areas harder at night than they were during the day, and a few were vice versa. So while this isn't really a form of level scaling, you can think of it as, hey, if you want to adventure here, you have to plan it so you arrive during the day because things went really hard at night. EverQuest did this. There was a forest, Kithakor, which was not bad, not too easy to run through during the day, but you did not want to go there at night. It really awful undead spawned at night. There were a few areas in Arcanum that were like that. However, we did have events that were triggered by quests that did affect the random encounter system. For example, the Malokian Hand, the assassins that were sent out for you, were triggered when you got the main story state to a particular point. Now, because we knew that those wouldn't be done early in the game, we made those encounters really tough. And because those are triggered by the quest and not your location, they can happen anywhere, which means you could be in an area that had really low power random encounters and run into the Malokian Hand. So that was kind of a form of level scaling in the sense that we knew you were higher level and had gotten to a certain part of the storyline and had triggered it. So Malokian Hands were inserted into the random encounter tables at that point. That was about as much level scaling, I think, as we did in Arcanum. When I did Temple, I went right back to fixed levels for all the encounters. And that was for two reasons. One, it's kind of what I like doing. And two, that's what the module called for. The module was designed so that the areas around Hamlet were pretty easy. Nob was a little harder. The Abandoned Bandit Keep, you were supposed to go there early, but the lower levels in the Bandit Keep were a little harder. And then the temple was designed to be harder the deeper you went down. So that when you got down to the very lowest levels and the elemental planes, those are supposed to be really hard. So we kind of stuck to that. I don't think there was anything in Temple that checked your level and changed any encounters that you might have. However, when I did the Outer Worlds, I wanted to do a form of level scaling. I consider it limited level scaling. What I wanted people to be challenged, but I didn't want them to lose the feeling of progression, because that's what I love. I love you encounter something and it's too hard and you go and level up and come back and kick its butt. I like that. I didn't like when you came back and it had leveled up too. I know that might be realistic, but it makes you lose that feeling of progression. So what we did on Outer Worlds was any creature encounter that was placed down had a range from X to Y. Now let's say you were level N and you showed up. Well, if your level N was less than X, which was their lower level, they were still level X. Basically, there was a lower level to which they would not drop low. So if you encountered them, they were level X. That was going to be too hard for you because you were lower level. You'd have to come back. If you encountered a group and your level N was between X and Y, then their level would be set to N. So they were a challenge for you. They were set to your level and you could fight. If when you encountered them, your level N was greater than Y, which was the maximum in their range X to Y, then they were just set to Y. You'd basically gotten powerful enough, they weren't going to get any more powerful. And you could take them on and they'd probably be a pretty easy encounter, especially as your level went higher and higher. Now, one thing to say about that is, well, two things really. One, once you encountered a particular group of creatures, their level was fixed. So let's say that X to Y was 5 to 10 and you were level 3. You encountered them where your 3 is less than 5, so they were set to level 5. Maybe you fought them and they were too hard and you left. If you came back at level 6, they would not be level 6. They had already been spawned in. They were still level 5. So you saw them as level 5, you came back, they were level 5, you fought them. If you had never encountered them before, though, and you walked into that level when you were first level 6, they'd be level 6. So this is the way we kind of said, okay, there's going to be challenge, but once you encounter something, it got pinned so you feel like you could progress and take them on. Also, those minimum and maximums, X and Y, got higher in later zones, but we did that so that those higher level zones were designed to be more challenging. So if you got in your rocket, your what was your ship's name? The Inconvenient? I forget what the ship name was in Outer Worlds. Oh, the Unreliable. I even named that. If you took the Unreliable straight to Monarch and landed on the one pad that you could land on without clearance, then you would discover very quickly that you were probably in over your head. Those were set to a really high level. But the advantage of going there and touching down, at least going out and looking, was it pinned them to the lowest level in their range. So then when you came back, they were already pinned to that range. I believe there were a bunch of Raptidons that were running around inside the town, the abandoned town that had that landing pad on it. If you had never gone to Monarch and you decided to check out that landing pad later, they might be a lot higher. And I like that because it gave you some sort of reward for at least exploring zones that were a little too high for you, knowing that you could come back later and they were pinned to that lower level. And I also liked that giving that range meant the level designers could design progressively harder and harder zones by dropping some similar encounters in terms of these were the same creatures, but I was moving them up to higher levels. So they had more hit points. They may have gained extra attacks. They would also mix more things in. Early encounters tended to be homogenous, and the later ones was, here's a mix of different kinds of Raptidons, the Spitters, the Chargers, and then their level was also higher. I think that is what I ended up liking. If I was going to do a game from now on, I think I like that form of limited level scaling. And I'm calling it limited because there are games out there, I know you know which ones I'm talking about, that the level scaling is done to your level dynamically whenever you have the encounter. So you're walking down the street, a raider attacks you, you're level 5, he's level 5. You run away, you go up 10 levels, you come back at level 15 and you think you're going to kick that raider's ass? No. He's now level 15 too. So I didn't like that because, one, it robbed you of any sense of progression, and two, if a raider's moved up to level 15, you wonder why they're still raiding. They have so much money and such good equipment. You're like, you could sell one of those guns and retire. So what I settled on was a form of limited level scaling. That's what I like. It's got challenge. It's got the sense of progression. It still gives level designers a means of making levels and indicating these should be progressively harder within a range. Seems to work all around. Let me know what you think of it. That was, I thought, the best solution, but be sure to tell me I'm wrong. Anyway, Angel Vaca, that's my thoughts on level scaling.